time, when people see those black ribbons, they know that you're in mourning. So they would have an opportunity to reach out to you, to comfort you, and to be with you in this moment of loss. So we have a very simple phrase to say. It's bless me, the true judge.
Next page.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אכסר, בינו דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי ישובב, ינחני במגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך וגיא צל מוות, לא ידע רע כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשרתך המה ינחמוני, טרח לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, דישנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. The 23rd Psalm, a psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green meadows, leading me beside the still waters to revive my spirit, guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. So we are all here gathered, the congregation Shari Zedek, to say goodbye to Grant Sinclair of blessed memory. Gershon Yosel ben Shlomo Elke, Zichrono Livracha, the son of Solomon and Elsie Sinclair of blessed memory, the brother of Berkey and Bud Linder and Carol Starikov, partner of Sharon Vincent. Grant was married to Janice Robertson, the mother of his children. Grant was the father of Danny and Shibon Sinclair, Struan Sinclair and Victoria Newell, Gavin Sinclair and Rebecca Sinclair and Rob Taylor. The grandfather of Ethan, Kira, Madik, and Oscar. Grant passed away last Thursday, July 26, at the age of 80. We read in Pirkei Avot, a section of the Mishnah, one of the most fundamental works of the Jewish oral law. It says, Rabbi Shimon says, there are three crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of kingship. But the crown of a good name surpasses all of them. The crown of a good name is worn by a person who does good deeds and has pure midot, traits of character, making him a role model for his peers and earning their respect and love. The first expression in the Bible of the importance of the crown of a good name is found in the book of Genesis, the beginning of the section called Lech Lecha. There, God commands the patriarch Abraham to leave his father's house and journey to an unknown land. God promises him, I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. And Abraham showed the world what it takes to deserve a good name when he challenged God himself. Also in the book of Genesis, God is about to pass judgment on the city of Sodom. Abraham, fearing that this will mean that the city will be destroyed, says to God, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do justice? This is a remarkable speech, a speech that made God proud of his creation. Abraham was perhaps the first human rights activist, willing to challenge God himself in order to protect the innocent. Today we are saying farewell to Grant Sinclair, a man who, like the biblical Abraham, will be remembered for his good name, product of a life dedicated to protecting human rights in Canada. I feel he would approve to have his funeral services conducted in Congregation Shari Zedek, a synagogue that is egalitarian, welcoming, and member of the World Congress of Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender Jews. In other words, a congregation like Grant, committed to human rights. As Jews, we have the divine obligation to pursue justice. As we read in the book of Deuteronomy, Tzedek, Tzedek tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue. The Midrash Tanhuma proclaims that every judge who decides according to the quintessential truth is regarded by Scripture as though they were a partner with God in creation. So, searching out and supporting justice brings us as close to the divine as we can get. That was Grant Sinclair's contribution to the world. That was Grant Sinclair's expressions of his Judaism, a life as defined by the prophet Isaiah, to do right, to seek justice, and to defend the oppressed. But Grant's sense of justice, his sense of what is right and what is wrong, was also expressed outside the courtrooms. Grant was very sensitive about the way things should be said, especially when there was involved criticism or rebuke. The rabbis teach that just as it is a mitzvah, a commandment, to offer words of rebuke when our words are likely to be heard, it is a mitzvah to stay silent when our words will not be heard. Grant Sinclair will probably agree with the words of Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, a Talmud authority, when he said that the sages established 3 conditions by which one can offer words of criticism. Number 1, avoid publicly shaming the wrongdoer. Number 2, to reprimand only someone who will accept our criticism. Number 3, to avoid voicing the reprimand if the person has expressed an unwillingness to be confronted. Grant Sinclair will be remembered not only for his contributions to human rights in Canada, but also for the love he shared with his family. And to hear more about Grant Sinclair, I would like to invite some people to come and share with us their eulogies. First, Sharon, please.
To paraphrase Shakespeare, he was a man, take him for all in all. We shall never see the likes of him again. J. Grant Sinclair, sometimes an enigma, a brilliant intellect, a disciplined and natural athlete with exceptional prowess, save for some dodgy skiing, a lover of food and the diversity of culture it represents, a formidable Jeopardy opponent. But more importantly, someone who was always more interested in hearing everyone's story than telling his own. Grant has changed the lives of many by protecting their rights, restoring their dignity, and giving them hope. You left this world a better place, but for your absence now in it.
Danny.
I am Daniel, son of Grant. It is said that you don't face your own mortality till the loss of a parent, and well, today I feel mortal. I am Grant's firstborn, and with a firstborn, everything is new to parents. And as a father myself, I know that often what you can do can be trial and error. I remember well what I said during my wedding speech to my parents. As firstborn, I was both a blessing and their biggest challenge. There's a saying that goes like this, and this is for my daughter Eitan, who's sitting next to my wife. When your children are young, you are their whole world. When they hit their teens, it's amazing how little you know. And then they're in their 20s, you have become wise again. As a child, it can be hard to see your parents as others do. In your eyes, you are forever the child. It was not until much later, and in my 30s, and in the context of a business deal, that I happened to be working with a man, David, who had been Grant's student at Osgoode Hall. When we were introduced and exchanging pleasantries, he suddenly stopped and said, you by any chance know Grant Sinclair? I replied and said, yes, he was my father. And David promptly launched into what a fantastic teacher and how Grant had not just known the law, he had understood and lived it. Now, I'm not a lawyer like my brother, Gavin, and David must have seen my confusion, and he stopped and struggled how to explain. He paused, thought, paused again, and then said, your father was a learned man. A learned man. There may be no greater compliment in Jewish culture, and my father was certainly that. And not only in law or education, but in curiosity about his surroundings, perhaps most importantly about others. As a learned man, he passed on that love of learning to his children, a business executive, a professor and author, a lawyer and executive, and an accountant, and I fervently hope also to his grandchildren. And grandchildren. We may not always have the chance for a second act in our lives, and Grant made the absolute most of his. Whatever doubts and challenges he may have had when we were growing up, melted away with Ethan, Maddock, Kira, and Oscar. His absolute joy and love for each of them was a wonder to behold, and while today I know we're all here to grieve, I am most sorry that they will no longer have him to be with, and that my daughters, along with the rest of us, will miss him. I know we all have many memories of Grant, and I'd now like to share a couple of memories with you. With apologies to my brother Struan for giving this in real time. The first when I was 12 and going to a bar mitzvah. It was my first one, as we had not been really religiously raised, my father took the time to explain what it was about and what to do when I was there. He also took great satisfaction in taking time for me to be fitted for my first ever suit at a local spot called Halpern's. It was all arranged. The morning of the bar mitzvah, I was to go pick up my suit, but when I went to pick up my suit, it turned out that Grant had forgotten to pay for it. And Halpern's flatly refused to give it to me. I pleaded, saying that they knew us, the bar mitzvah was in a couple of hours, and in that uppity manner that only a menswear salesperson can summon, declared, but then how will I get my commission? In a panic, I ran home, put on pants, running shoes, and running out of time, borrowed one of my father's suit jackets, which hung to my knees, and a tie, nothing matching. As I was picked up, the father driving the car, not my father, another father, driving the car, asked me, are you sure you want to wear that? Later, as I was dropped off, Grant was sitting on a stool in the driveway, and I can still clearly recall the look of absolute astonishment on his face. He looked at me, started to laugh, tried to ask me what had happened, and then fell off the stool laughing so hard he was crying. I'm not sure I ever saw him laugh that hard. And as I'm sure you can guess, that salesman never got his commission. And the second, growing up, we weren't always the most demonstrative family. And I'm not sure I recall seeing my father dance very much. So one day I was going down to our basement to grab something, and I heard the Stevie Wonder song. I just called to say, I love you. And there was my father singing the song to himself as he danced around the rec room. I was so surprised that I just stood there for the whole song, accepting the gift of watching him dance in his own world and completely content. I like to think now that perhaps it's our own thoughts from today echoing down the years to him. Grant's journey certainly took a few turns, and one of my favorite quotes is by the author Joseph Campbell. And in many ways, I always thought it suited my father well. You must give up the life you had planned in order to accept the one that is waiting for you. In English, we really only have one way to say goodbye, but in French, there are two. Au revoir, which means I'll see you again, and adieu in God. And so it is that I say today, adieu, Papa. Take care of Saul and Elsie, and sleep well.
Thank you. Nick Perky is going to share with us some words from Carol.
This is from my sister who couldn't be here. Although regrettably, and this is many of her memories of her little brother. Although regrettably I can't be there in person, I am there in thought and sadness. I want to say a few words about my little brother. Excuse me, about some of the things that only an older sister can know. We all know about Grant's intelligence, his ability, his sometimes weird sense of humor, and his love of family. We know he was an excellent lawyer, hired immediately out of law school by one of the most prestigious law firms in Toronto, and following our family traditions, he became a professor as well. Our family was all very proud of him and his accomplishments. However, there was much more to Grant. For one, he loved to read. I remember him coming home from the library with at least 8 books and shut up in his room reading all of them over the weekend. Of course, he always had a very large bag of oranges to sustain during this marathon, leaving all the peels under his bed for me to clean up, and me. And he never stopped reading. As I went into literature, he and I used to have long lists of books that needed to be read. Even though we had a busy schedule, he read everything quickly while I lagged behind. He and I shared a love of movies as well, which led to more recommendations and discussions. Our early youth was filled with fun and fighting, real fighting where we would hit each other in the stomach or wherever we could find a spot. At the same time, we had a game where I was the princess and he was my courtier, and I sent him on all kinds of errands, which he fulfilled until he got tired of it all and staged a rebellion. He had blonde, curly hair that our mother would keep in ringlets, so he looked like a girl and was often mistaken for one. During this time, we would exchange clothes. I would dress in his and he in mine, hoping to fool people into thinking, well, actually it was an early form of cross-dressing. This did not last long because I was much taller than he was, and his pants were a little too short for me, so I couldn't even stand up without pain. Mom finally cut his hair and, of course, kept the shorn ringlets in a box. Once he entered school, he became somewhat troublesome. He always had a mind of his own, but school brought out the worst in him. Mom hustled him down to the principal's office, his home away from home, because he spent so much time there. After much testing, they decided he was bored. There was not much to challenge him, no special classes for intelligent or challenged students in those days, so they kept him after school for extra tutoring to help deal with everything. He didn't like that a bit. He thought he was being punished. He rebelled every day. But eventually all was explained and things went better. He was an excellent athlete, always getting hurt. As I remember, he played hockey, basketball, and suffered from sprained ankles, wrists, dislocated shoulders, you name it. But he never stopped. He had a lot of energy and had trouble keeping still, except to read, of course. When our dad took the family to the University of Minnesota to complete his PhD, things were quite different for Grant and me. We all lived in grad students' apartments, which were 1 bedroom, kitchen, living room, a bathroom, and a large hall connecting everything. Mom and Dad took the Murphy bed, which was a fold-down bed that stayed in the closet until needed, and in the hallway. Grant and I had the bedroom. It gave Grant a chance to show his generosity. One day he complained he did not feel well, had a fever, and his whole body itched. Measles. Soon I caught them, and then Perky caught them. We were all miserable and whiny at the same time, thanks to him. A few months later, the same thing happened when the chickenpox hit, but we all got through them, thanked Grant for his generosity, told him not to bother next time. I don't know how my mother survived, but by the way, we never caught anything else. Our favorite heroes in those days were Superman and Wonder Woman. Yes, they had been around that long. Since there were no such things as ready-made costumes, we had to improvise. I made a crown out of foil, a cape from a bath towel pinned around my neck, and paper wrapped many times around my wrists. Grant improvised as well, but he had a Superman t-shirt, and thus we set out to save the world. We had a great time. It's one of my favorite memories. I could talk about the summers we spent at our grandmother's house in Rosthern near Saskatoon, activities good and bad we were involved in, lots and lots and lots of memories. The party line phones, going to the well for water, biking out to the river to pick Saskatoon berries, baths on occasion, because there was a water shortage, usually in used dishwasher water, peeking through the window of the pool hall, no girls allowed, foraging in the attic for all kinds of treasures, and we found lots. Once we got to university, our contact became less frequent, and I got married and moved to Phoenix. He came to visit, badly wanted to see Taliesin West, Frank Lloyd Wright's Western home. This was 1963. We found the pathways, literally trails and no signs, no houses, no civilization. People used to go for hikes and get lost, sometimes only a few yards from the highway, and they would die. So I said, let's go home. 2 years ago, Grant came to visit in Phoenix and asked to go to Taliesin West. Now the home is in the middle of civilization, so we went. We had come full circle. I miss him, will continue to miss him, but I have all the big sister adventures, misadventures, and love that only he and I shared. I love you, Grant. Will miss you, your brilliant mind, your impatience, your love of travel, and all that we shared. Your forever big sister. And I want to add that I too will miss my big brother, who was always there to protect me. Even into my older years, he still referred to me as his baby sister. I love you, Grant. I will miss our weekly phone calls, and I will miss you.
Thank you all for sharing those words. That's the idea of a funeral. Sometimes people believe that Jewish funerals are all about the prayers we sing, but no. The most important part is when we share our eulogies. Eulogies have this capacity to bring comfort, to bring consolation, and somehow also to inspire us to continue the life of our loved ones here on this earth. And I believe that's one of the secrets of a life beyond this life, to be sure that there is somebody else continuing with our lives, with our dreams, with our inspiration in this world. And there is one more thing that I remember from my conversation with Sharon and Perky yesterday, and it was the fact that Grant took his fitness very seriously. But you see, some people, they like fitness because they want to look good. But for him, it was about feeling good to be able to reach his divine purpose in this world. There was a famous rabbi in the Middle Ages, his name was Maimonides, and he said it back then. He said, a weak body cannot fulfill mitzvahs. So it's also, for me, it's an inspiration when you know somebody who take care of his body for the right reason, to make this world a better world. That takes lots of energy. I would like to invite you all to rise now for the El Maleh Rachamim prayer. El Maleh Rachamim Shochem Bameroimim Hametze Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'ma'alot Kedoshim Kedoshim Uteorim Kezoyer Rakim Mazirim Et Nishemat Et Nishemat Gershon Yosel Ben Shlomo Elke שהלך לעולמו. בעבור שאנו מתפללים ועד הצקרת נשמתו בגן עדן, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו. לכם בלרחמים אז תראיו בסדר כנף אב לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים, החיים את נשמתו. אדוני ונחלתו וינוח Shalach v'shalom al mishkavo v'numar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Grant Sinclair, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. So in a few minutes, we're going to proceed in caravan fashion to the Sharizedek Cemetery. Just as a reminder, if you're driving your own car, to turn on your four-way flashers and please stop at all stop signs and red lights. It's going to be one evening of Shiva, that is tonight, at the home of Judy Haid, 825 Lanark, tonight only, from 7 to 9 p.m. Anyway, and when we come back from the cemetery, the meal of consolation is going to be here at the Sharizedek, and at the end of the meal of consolation, around 6:30, the Kaddish is going to be recited here in this chapel as part of the daily Minyan. So now it's time for us to proceed to the next stage. And for that, I would like to invite first the pallbearers to exit now and assume your places alongside the coffin. And the family exits now. You proceed directly to your transportation. And the rest of us, we can leave the chapel now. Thank you all for coming.